The nature of modern celebrity has evolved into something grander and far more complex than the world has ever witnessed before, creating a landscape where public figures are no longer just individuals, but entire cultural institutions. In this contemporary arena of global fame, the lives of superstars are tracked with microscopic precision by millions of devoted followers, making every public appearance, every lyrical hint, and every athletic achievement a matter of international conversation. We live in an era defined by massive spectacles, where stadium lights illuminate thousands of screaming fans and the digital world amplifies every whisper into a thundering headline. It is within this high-stakes environment that the public constantly seeks narratives of genuine connection, hoping to find human stories that can pierce through the synthetic veneer of superficial stardom. When two separate worlds of immense influence and cultural dominance begin to slide toward one another, the resulting intersection creates a gravitational pull that captivates the collective imagination of the entire planet. This is a story about the grand illusions of public perception versus the complicated, hesitant realities that occur behind closed doors when the cameras are turned off and the stadium lights finally fade into black. It is a chronicle of how a seemingly unstoppable cultural phenomenon was built on a foundation of deep uncertainty, unexpected matchmakers, and a series of misconnections that very nearly altered the course of pop culture history forever. To truly understand the magnitude of this unfolding narrative, one must look back to the vibrant and highly charged atmosphere of the summer of 2023, a period when the entertainment industry was completely dominated by an unprecedented musical journey. Cities across the globe were being transformed overnight by a blockbuster stadium tour that transcended regular concert experiences to become a full-fledged economic and social movement. Fans traveled thousands of miles, dressing in elaborate costumes and participating in communal rituals that centered around the exchange of handmade friendship bracelets, which became a universal currency of devotion and shared identity among millions. The artist at the center of this whirlwind was performing at an athletic peak, delivering exhausting multi-hour sets comprising dozens of songs night after night, a feat requiring absolute physical dedication and total vocal isolation. The sheer scale of this touring empire meant that the backstage areas were heavily fortified fortresses, designed to protect the artist from the relentless demands of the outside world and preserve the precious energy needed to sustain such a monumental production. It was an environment of strict discipline where access was virtually impossible, even for those who were accustomed to getting whatever they wanted in their own respective fields of excellence. Meanwhile, on the other side of the American cultural spectrum, a parallel empire was operating at its own absolute peak within the grueling, high-stakes domain of professional football. In Kansas City, a city deeply defined by its athletic heritage and passionate stadium culture, a charismatic tight end was preparing for another demanding season under the intense scrutiny of sports analysts and millions of fans. Known for his boisterous personality, exceptional athletic prowess, and deep connection to his family, this athlete inhabited a world of intense physical collision, strategic playbooks, and locker room camaraderie that seemed worlds away from the glittering stage of pop music. Yet, as fate would have it, these two entirely separate universes were destined to collide in the very stadium where he spent his Sundays battling for championship glory. Inspired by the infectious energy of the concert-goers who had flooded his home stadium, the football star hatched a bold and surprisingly sentimental plan to bridge the gap between their two worlds during her tour stop. He decided to embrace the fan culture itself by constructing a custom friendship bracelet, but with a highly personal twist that included his own phone number spelled out in beads, intending to deliver it directly to the pop icon backstage. However, the reality of global superstardom quickly clashed with this idealistic plan, resulting in an immediate and humbling rejection that would soon become public knowledge. The strict security protocols and the artist's rigid routine of vocal preservation meant that she remained completely inaccessible before and after her grueling 44-song performances, leaving the athlete standing outside her inner circle with his custom bracelet undelivered. Rather than hiding this minor embarrassment, the football player chose to share his disappointment openly on his popular weekly podcast, which he co-hosted with his brother. He explained to his massive audience of sports enthusiasts and curious listeners how he had been left disappointed by his inability to deliver the token, casually noting that she did not speak to anyone around the shows to save her voice. This candid, humble admission of defeat resonated deeply across the internet, transforming what could have been a private, forgotten moment into a compelling public narrative of a modern courtship attempt. The description of this bold gesture quickly captured the attention of the pop star herself, who later likened the moment to a classic 80s romantic comedy, where a persistent suitor stands outside a window with a boombox, openly declaring his intentions to the world. As we look at how this magnificent story developed from a simple podcast comment into something that has completely dominated global headlines for years, we invite you to join our community and stay updated on all the deepest stories behind the entertainment world by subscribing to this channel right now. Your support allows us to continue bringing you these detailed accounts of the events that shape our cultural landscape. The narrative that began in that stadium has now reached a grand culmination that the entire world is whispering about, as rumors and official reports point toward a monumental celebrations scheduled to take place next week on the 3rd of July. The couple, who have both reached the age of 36, are reportedly preparing to tie the knot in a highly anticipated summer wedding that many are calling the ultimate union of modern American royalty. Speculation has reached a fever pitch regarding the venue, with insiders suggesting that the legendary Madison Square Garden arena in New York City could serve as the backdrop for this historic event. Though the couple has managed to keep the specific details incredibly well guarded from the public and even from some of their own guests, yet, as the public prepares to witness what looks like the ultimate Hollywood fairy tale, exclusive new insights have emerged that completely challenge the flawless narrative the world knows all too well. While the public saw an instant, seamless romance blossoming under the stadium lights, the true story of those initial months was plagued by hesitation, conflicting mindsets, and a profound sense of uncertainty that almost caused the entire relationship to collapse before it ever really started. Behind the scenes, the transition from a bold public gesture to an actual romantic partnership was anything but smooth, characterized by a distinct lack of commitment and a casual approach that threatened to turn this historic romance into a mere temporary summer fling. As we prepare to dive deeper into the hidden layers of this relationship in the next segment, the golden couple of America was actually standing on much shakier ground than anyone could have ever anticipated, setting up a clash of lifestyles and expectations that required the intervention of unexpected allies to survive. The illusion of an instant and effortless romance between two global icons is a compelling narrative. Yet the truth behind the initial months of their connection reveals a far more complex and hesitant reality. When the public first caught wind of this monumental pairing, the collective assumption was that a magical spark had immediately unified their worlds into a seamless partnership. However, deep within the private circles of the athletic elite and the music industry, a very different dynamic was unfolding during those warm summer weeks of 2023. The charismatic tight end, who had spent his entire adult life navigating the intense but relatively straightforward world of professional sports, was operating under a completely different set of expectations than the global pop star. Multiple well-placed insiders have revealed that in the immediate aftermath of his famous podcast admission, the athlete maintained what can only be described as a strictly casual, no-strings-attached mentality. He was a highly successful bachelor in the prime of his career, enjoying his hard-earned freedom and the vibrant social life that came with being a champion in a major sports city. And he was simply not looking for anything serious. To understand his initial hesitation and casual approach, one must examine the timeline of his personal life leading up to this fateful encounter. The football player had only been single for about a year following the emotional and highly publicized breakdown of his previous long-term relationship. He had spent 5 consecutive years dating a prominent model, a relationship that had deeply integrated into his personal routine and family structure before ultimately concluding in 2022. Having emerged from such a lengthy and significant commitment, he was inherently cautious about jumping directly back into another intense partnership, let alone one that carried a level of global scrutiny unlike anything he had ever experienced. In those early summer months, before any official public appearances were made and before the media realized a connection existed, the athlete was actively dating other people. He was exploring his options and enjoying the dating scene without any expectation that his playful podcast comment would actually transform his entire life, viewing the initial interaction more as an amusing, unexpected coincidence than the beginning of a lifelong journey. This casual mindset manifested in ways that would surprise many devoted followers who have grown accustomed to seeing the couple completely inseparable in recent years. Sources close to the situation have noted that during the very early stages of their communication, the football star was noticeably slow to respond to messages, often letting hours or even days pass before replying to the pop icon. This was not done out of malice or a deliberate attempt to avoid her, but rather because he simply was not pursuing her with the aggressive determination that the public might expect from a legendary competitor. He was focused on his demanding training camp schedule, his physical conditioning, and the upcoming football season, maintaining the lifestyle of a professional athlete who was used to things moving at his own comfortable pace. For him, the idea of pursuing the most famous musical artist on earth felt somewhat surreal, and he initially treated the entire situation with a degree of detachment. Uncertain if the connection possessed any real substance, or if it was merely a passing digital flirtation, the stark contrast between their two distinct worlds created an immediate logistical and psychological barrier that threatened to stall the romance before it could truly begin. In the world of professional football, relationships can often be kept relatively private, confined to local restaurants, team functions, and private gatherings away from the national spotlight. In sharp contrast, entering the orbit of this specific pop superstar meant an immediate, absolute surrender of anonymity. There is a well-established and highly intense pattern that accompanies any man associated with her, a phenomenon where the moment a potential partner is photographed in her presence, an absolute media frenzy is unleashed. Swarms of aggressive paparazzi begin to shadow their every move, international news outlets analyze every article of clothing, and millions of passionate internet detectives dissect every past comment and relationship. For someone who is accustomed to being judged strictly by his performance on a football field, the sudden realization of what entering this universe actually entailed was understandably daunting and served as a major reason for his initial reluctance to fully commit, despite these underlying tensions and the athlete's ongoing dates with other individuals. The connection persisted in complete secrecy for several weeks, as they gradually figured out how to navigate one another. Insiders are incredibly careful to emphasize that during this formative period, the two superstars were not exclusive, meaning there was absolutely no breach of trust or inappropriate behavior on either side. They were two single, incredibly successful individuals casually exploring an intriguing connection while maintaining their own independent lives. The pop star herself was also harboring her own significant reservations about dating a professional athlete, a demographic she had consciously avoided throughout her highly publicized romantic history. She had spent decades surrounding herself with creative individuals, musicians, actors, and writers, and she openly questioned what she would even talk about with someone whose entire life revolved around physical sports and athletic playbooks. She was an analytical songwriter who operated in the nuances of language and emotion, and the prospect of bridging the gap with an NFL player seemed like an improbable match that might not survive the harsh realities of daily conversation. The delicate balance of this casual, secret courtship was forever altered in September of 2023, a pivotal moment that forced the relationship out of the shadows and directly into the brightest spotlight imaginable. The pop star made a stunning, unannounced appearance in a luxury suite at Arrowhead Stadium, sitting alongside the athlete's beloved mother to cheer him on during a live game. This singular moment acted as a massive cultural explosion, instantly shattering the casual, secret nature of their previous interactions and signaling to the entire world that they had officially chosen to become an exclusive couple. The image of the music icon reacting enthusiastically to every play while bonding with his family became an overnight sensation, causing television networks to pivot their cameras away from the game itself just to catch a glimpse of her presence. The sheer velocity of the public reaction was overwhelming, instantly validating the athlete's initial fears about the intense gravity of her world, yet forcing him to make a definitive choice about whether he was ready to embrace this new reality. The sudden shift from a casual, multi-person dating life to being one half of the most talked-about couple in the world required a massive psychological adjustment for the football star. He was suddenly confronted with a level of global fame that surpassed anything the sports world could offer, as his jersey sales skyrocketed by hundreds of percent and his social media following exploded overnight. Yet, rather than retreating from the sudden onslaught of intense public scrutiny, the athlete began to show the true resilience of his character, gradually leaning into the chaos and learning to find enjoyment within the madness. He would later reflect on this profound transition by noting that this was simply the life he had chosen. acknowledging that intense media attention simply comes with the territory when you decide to pursue extraordinary experiences and high-profile partnerships. The initial hesitation that had defined his summer was completely burnt away by the sheer intensity of the autumn spotlight, setting the stage for a spectacular transformation that would eventually lead them to the altar. But not before a series of powerful behind-the-scenes influences worked tirelessly to ensure this fairy tale survived its fragile beginning. The miraculous transition of this relationship from a casual, hesitant summer flirtation into an enduring global romance required more than just the mutual attraction of two extraordinary individuals. Behind the scenes, during those fragile early days when the entire connection could have easily dissolved due to the athlete's initial reluctance and the pop star's own reservations, powerful external forces were actively working to stabilize the bond. It was an intricate web of family guidance and dedicated friendship that ultimately bridged the vast gap between the music industry and the gridiron. The most significant and deeply influential intervention came from within the pop star's own inner circle, specifically from her devoted mother, who possessed a unique and intuitive understanding of what her daughter truly needed in a lifelong partner. Recognizing that her daughter had spent years navigating complex, hyper-artistic relationships that often brought immense emotional turmoil, the matriarch saw something fundamentally different and incredibly wholesome in the energetic, family-oriented football player who had boldly stepped into their world. The catalyst for this maternal intervention occurred when the mother took it upon herself to thoroughly investigate the character of the Kansas City tight end, reaching out directly to a trusted family cousin who was deeply familiar with the inner workings of professional football. The feedback she received was overwhelmingly positive, painting a portrait of an incredibly kind, grounded, and deeply authentic individual who, despite his immense athletic fame, remained fiercely loyal to his roots and cherished his relationship with his own mother. Armed with this reassurance, the matriarch gave her daughter the definitive, gentle nudge required to take the relationship seriously, emphasizing how incredibly sweet and meaningful it was that a professional athlete had actively sought to enter her musical world by constructing a thoughtful, custom token of appreciation. This motherly validation resonated deeply with the singer, helping her dismantle her long-held biases against dating professional athletes, and allowing her to see that a partnership built on mutual respect and simple, unvarnished kindness was entirely possible. Simultaneously, another crucial matchmaker was operating within their shared social circle, acting as a vital logistical and emotional go-between during those intense weeks when the couple was still trying to keep their interactions entirely hidden from the global media. A close, longtime friend of the singer, who also happened to be friendly with the football star through her own husband's connections, stepped forward to navigate the delicate communications between the two distinct worlds. This trusted confidante understood the immense pressure both individuals were under and seamlessly facilitated their early conversations, ensuring that misunderstandings were minimized and that the athlete's initial slow responses were not misinterpreted as a total lack of interest. This sophisticated support structure allowed the initial spark to survive the chaotic transition from private text messages to public reality, providing a safe harbor where the relationship could quietly strengthen before being subjected to the unrelenting glare of international paparazzi and stadium cameras once the relationship officially transitioned into exclusivity following that September appearance at Arrowhead Stadium. The couple no longer required any external assistance to maintain their powerful trajectory. The pop superstar became a constant, joyful fixture in the luxury football suites, fully immersing herself in the vibrant culture of the sport and forging deep, genuine connections with the athlete's teammates, friends, and family members. She embraced the community with the same fierce dedication she applies to her musical empire, standing by his side through grueling winter games, intense playoff battles, and the ultimate triumph of another championship victory. In return, the legendary tight end completely redefined his own off-season schedule to match her relentless global touring commitments, traveling across continents and oceans to stand prominently in the VIP tents of her record-breaking world tour, openly singing along to her lyrics and matching her public displays of devotion with an uninhibited, celebratory enthusiasm that captivated millions of onlookers around the world. This beautiful era of mutual support and shared global adventures gradually solidified their bond, transforming their initially hesitant connection into an absolute certainty that culminated in a breathtaking milestone during the late summer of 2025. Almost exactly 2 years after his initial podcast confession, the football star asked for her hand in marriage, cementing their commitment with a magnificent 10-carat engagement ring that symbolized the grand scale of their shared love story. The transition from independent icons to a unified force was complete, as they spent the subsequent months quietly navigating the intricate logistics of planning a historic wedding while maintaining an unprecedented level of privacy, despite their massive cultural visibility. They successfully shielded the core details of their upcoming nuptials from the relentless media machine, creating an atmosphere of profound intimacy around an event that the entire world was desperately trying to peer into. Now, as the global community stands on the absolute precipice of this monumental occasion, scheduled to take place on the 3rd of July, the incredible journey of these two individuals has reached its grand cinematic destination. The rumors surrounding the legendary Madison Square Garden arena as the chosen venue for this historic union continue to electrify the entertainment industry, symbolizing a perfect intersection of New York glamour and stadium-sized romance. Even as some elite guests remain delightfully in the dark regarding the specific surprises planned for the evening, the overarching narrative is one of absolute completeness and profound triumph over early doubt. The initial hesitation, the slow text responses, the casual dating mentalities, and the mutual reservations that once threatened to derail this American fairy tale have been completely washed away by years of genuine devotion, laughter, and unbreakable partnership. When they stand before their loved ones next week to exchange their vows, it will be a spectacular testament to the fact that sometimes the most enduring and beautiful love stories are the ones that begin with a simple missed connection and a healthy dose of human uncertainty.